It's okay. We're doing the other one. East African, or we continue? Sawa. Sorry.
Just in case you need the figures for.
Okay.
Thank you.
My colleagues, the Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, the Honorable Fred Matiang'i, the Honorable Justin Muturi, the Secretary General of KANU, George Wainaina, members of Parliament, the leadership from both houses, Parliament, the National Assembly and the Senate, wazalendo wenzangu, hamjambo. Naona kama mmekasirika sana lakini bado tunaumwa kwa sababu tunayatafakari yaliyotendeka wiki hii haswa kwa upande wa mahakama. And before I proceed to read this statement of my colleagues who add one or two things, we have a duty to declare our solidarity as ever with each one of us. And we know the matter of that ruling by the three judges in the matter of the petition by our brother, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and there's many other, I think 50-something petitioners. That matter continues to weigh heavily on the conscience of Kenyans. And I can tell you, I've pronounced myself before on this matter, and I reiterate that ruling, because it touches on Article 25 of the Constitution, and that Article 25 clearly states that the matter of fair hearing, entitlement of every Kenyan to fair hearing, is a non-derogable right. And the moment you make a finding that that is the case, then the Constitution is absolute and it's clear. So much as we feel with our brother Rigiji, the weight of arriving at the wrong conclusion, we also now know, I can tell you, from this podium, that finding itself amounted to lifting of the impeachment. It is very clear to me, and therefore anybody arguing that Rigathi Gachagua cannot run for elective office is clearly misleading themselves. And so therefore we want to encourage our brother and all of us in that regard. We have apologies before we read this. So I'm reading this on behalf of the United Alternative Government. We have apologies from our brother, Honorable the DAPK leader, Mheshimiwa Eugene Wamalwa, and our sister mother, Wangari Karua, who is out in Uganda. Otherwise we are all together in this very important matter. So if you allow me, some of it, my colleagues, be giving maybe a personal matter, my own experience in this, but we will, at the end of this presentation, each one of us will say one or two things. The subject is on the financial year 2026-2027 budget and the Finance Bill 2026, and this is the people's budget. We have been accused before, and we want to tell Kenyans we are up to it. We are up to it. We are not just going to criticize this time, we are going to give an alternative budget. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. And before I speak about figures and fiscal deficits, I want to speak about a woman I met in Mathare recently. She sells second-hand clothes and pays her SHA deductions every month. She also sends her children to a public school that the Constitution says is free. Last week, the school sent a letter to her. Quote, please pay 3,500 shillings for infrastructure development levy before your child sits end-term exams. End of quote. She does not have it. I'm standing here today because of her and because of every Kenyan like her who has run out of time to wait on a regime that has lost its moral authority to lead. Fellow Kenyans, on my part, my colleagues will also say theirs, I've been in public service for over 4 decades. I've sat at cabinet tables, at the office of the Vice President, and even others dealing with peace negotiations. I've seen Kenya at its best, and I've seen what bad governance does to a people who deserve so much better than they have been given. Nothing, though, in all these years of public life, has prepared me for the cruelty of this budget. Because that is what it is. Not just incompetence and miscalculation, but cruelty. The cruelty of a regime that knows exactly what it is doing to its people, has the treasury documents to prove it knows, and has chosen to proceed anyway. I've read the National Treasury and Budget Summary published April 30, 2026. I've studied the Budget Policy Statement, and I too have read the Finance Bill 2026, and I'm here today standing before our nation to tell you what those documents say in a nutshell and what they mean for the Kenyan family that is simply trying to survive. The state of the nation, and basically saying numbers, that's the title, numbers cannot lie. The National Treasury released financial year 2026-2027 budget summary on April 30th, 2026. These are not opposition figures. These are the government's own numbers that can be found on treasury.go.ke for every Kenyan to read. Let me walk you through what they say. This is the largest spending plan in the history of the Republic of Kenya. Gross expenditure at 4.82 trillion shillings. Yet total revenue, including taxes and all other inflows, stands at only 3.63 trillion shillings. The gap between what this regime spends and what it collects is a whopping 1.11 trillion shillings. A fiscal deficit of 5.3% of our entire GDP. The difference of 1.11 trillion is borrowed. And it is borrowed on behalf of a child in Turkana who is 4 years old today, who has never signed a loan agreement, and who has never attended a budget committee hearing. That child will repay this debt with interest. That is not fiscal management, ladies and gentlemen. That is generational slavery. Now consider this. The entire consolidated fund services, that is debt obligations and pensions, consumes 1.5 trillion shillings, and that is 31.2% of the national budget. Interest payments alone stand at 1.25 trillion. Domestic interest payments on loans taken within our borders totals 986.7 billion shillings. To put that in a language every Kenyan understands, interest on domestic debt alone costs more than the entire education budget of 668.3 billion shillings. Think about this. We are spending more on paying bankers than on teaching children. 31 cents of every shilling, 31 cents of every shilling, Kenyan shilling, raise goes to debt service before a single classroom is built, before a nurse is hired, and before a single road is repaired. Meanwhile, the Federation of Kenya Employers tells us that 67% of young Kenyans between ages of 15 and 34 years of age are unemployed. Imagine, 67%. In a country where youth are not the future, they are the present and they are the majority. And this Ruto budget has told the majority to wait. On free education, the most expensive lie in Kenyan politics. Article 53 of our Constitution states that every child has the right to free and compulsory basic education, not subsidized education or partly funded education, but free education. Yet here is what the budget estimates actually show. Free day secondary education capitation, 54.6 billion shillings, yet the full funding requirement is 83 billion shillings. This is a shortfall of 28.4 billion shillings. Under free primary education, the government remits 1,420 shillings per pupil per year. Yet the budget policy statement at page 44 of volume 2 documents an 18 billion capitation gap. Junior secondary schools receive 30.9 billion shillings against a need of 42 billion shillings. A Form 1, or whatever they call it today, CTR 10, Form 1, grade 10, a student arriving at a public day school, supposedly free, finds no desk and no textbooks. And all children go without desks because of the Kenya School Equipment Scheme, the program that once put desks, laboratory equipment, and books directly into public schools has been defunded and forgotten. The budget estimates show an estimated 112 billion shillings allocated for administrative overheads at the Ministry of Education headquarters. 112 billion shillings for the bureaucracy that runs education sector. 65 billion for the children being educated. That is not a budget. That is an insult. Thirdly, school safety and student mental health, a crisis this budget ignores. On Saturday, June 6th, I stood before the Kenyans and spoke about something that had nothing to do with websites or campaign platforms. I spoke about 16 of our daughters who will never come home again because of the fire at Tutumishi Girls Academy in Gilgil. Since May, Kenya has watched with growing dread as school after school has experienced unrest, destruction, and fire. Lenana School, State House Girls, Alliance High School, Loreto Limuru, these are not isolated incidents. They are patterned, and this government with a budget of 4.82 trillion shillings has responded with investigations that go nowhere. And today we have seen they've even recommended suspending the midterm or bringing the midterm break a little earlier. What are our children telling us? They are telling us that dormitory buildings are fire traps that were never built to code and have never been inspected to standard. They are telling us that the food is inadequate and sometimes unsafe. They are telling us that when they raise concerns about conditions, about pressure, about feeling overwhelmed, no one listens. They are telling us that the mental health burden on a Kenyan teenager today is heavier than any generation before them has carried, and that the system built around them has no mechanism to hear them, let alone help them. This is not a new crisis. It is a neglected one. A government that allows it to fester while protecting a 112 billion shillings Minister of Education administrative overhead has made a choice. It has chosen the bureaucracy of our children for the last 4 years. Now look at what this budget allocates to address it. School mental health programming, effectively zero. There's no dedicated national school mental health line in the budget estimates. The Edu Afya, Kumboka, our brother Matiangi will speak to that. Our Edu Afya school health screening program, which was often the only medical review a public school child ever received, was abolished by this Ruto regime. The Kenya School Equipment Scheme, which would put safe and adequate furniture into schools, remains defunded, as we said before. Boarding school safety infrastructure is not a named priority anywhere in these estimates. Yet, we are spending 9.2 billion Kenya shillings on Energy, Petroleum and Regulatory Authority, EPRA, the fuel levy regulator, and zero on the mental health of 2 million boarding school kids. That is not a budget, that is an abdication. Your united government in waiting makes 4 commitments and they come with budget lines attached. First, a mandatory national safety and audit of every boarding school dormitory in Kenya with enforceable deadlines and criminal liability for non-compliance. We fund this from the 20% cut to Minister of Education administrative overhead, that is 22.4 billion shillings, redirected from the bureaucracy to the children it is supposed to serve. Second, a fully funded national school mental health program that will be a dedicated budget line, not a footnote in a health of ministry circular. We reinstate Edu Afya funded at 5 billion shillings, restored from the savings on the cancelled Social Health Authority, SHA technology contract. I will be talking about that. I think our brother Reggie will address that one, the 104 billion shillings. Amazing, strange contract. Third, a comprehensive review of boarding school standards, accommodation, nutrition, safety, and student grievance mechanisms that guarantee every child is heard and treated with dignity. I must say, when I was Minister for Education, people remember the late Griffin, the director of Starehe Boys Center. Griffin had an amazing philosophy. Any child, in fact, his office had only the desk and one cut. Any child, whether from 1 up to from 6, could walk freely. And they used to have every Friday an assembly between students and head and all the teachers. And the ground rules were, whatever is said against you should never be taken. If a child says Mwalimu Fulani is terrible, that Mwalimu would never be allowed to take it against that child. That was openness. And because of it, Starehe Boys Center, in the middle of the city, you could even pick a cigarette stump. You couldn't pick it anywhere, and they were able to freely walk. Some of them, I see nodding, like Senator Manzo, who is an old student of Starehe Boys. Fourth, genuine accountability. There must be criminal liability for every official, administrator, contractor, or building inspector who knowingly signed off an unsafe infrastructure. At number 4, health and SHA, mandatory taxation disguised as healthcare reform. Let me take you to Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital on a Tuesday morning. A 34-year-old woman who pays her SHA deductions every month faithfully, without fail, presents her card at the gate, but the system is down and she's turned away. Does that sound familiar? There's an outage for the last 4 days. This is not hypothetical. This is the lived experience of millions of Kenyans who were told that SHA would replace the National Hospital Insurance Fund, NHIF, and deliver better, broader, and more affordable health care. The budget policy statement, the government's own document on page 29, records an 11 billion shilling gap in the SHA transition. They know it is broken, and they documented that it is broken. They also have published the evidence of the brokenness. And then they brought this budget before the nation and asked Kenyans to accept it. Total health allocation at 170.7 billion shillings, a system serving 54 million people. Only 19.1 billion shillings for county-level primary care are spread across the 47 counties, covering thousands of levels 2 and level 3 facilities. That is 406 million shillings per county for every dispensary, for every health center, for every county hospital. That is the first and only point of contact for millions of Kenyans who cannot afford to go elsewhere. SHA, in its current form, is not a health policy. It is a compulsory tax with a hospital logo. And this government has added insult to injury by simultaneously signing a 104 billion shillings technology contract. I repeat, 104 billion shillings for a digital platform around a health system that cannot serve the patient at the gate. Linda Mama, the free maternity program that gave thousands of Kenyan mothers a safe, dignified birth at a public hospital, has been abolished. Edu Afya, abolished. These programs worked as they reached the people who needed them most. At point number 5, the Finance Bill 2026, taxing the poor through the system. For 3 years in a row, this government has returned to the same well. In 2024, they came for your bread. In 2025, they came for your data. In 2026, they are coming through the system quietly, technically, with provisions buried in legislative language that most Kenyans will never read. The Finance Bill 2026 proposes a 16% value-added tax on the fees and commissions charged by mobile money platforms, M-Pesa and Airtel Money. 16% VAT on the platform that 90% of Kenyans use every single day. The Central Bank of Kenya has documented mobile money fees as high as 7% of transfer value, and the same CBK launched a public campaign to cap those fees. The Ruto Finance Bill drives them back up. The grandmother in Wajir, waiting to receive 1,000 shillings from her grandson working in Mombasa, will pay more for that transfer. The Mama Mboga in Gikomba, paying a supplier through M-Pesa, and remember, even the mitumba is taxed. The Mama Mboga in Gikomba, paying a supplier through M-Pesa, will pay more. The boda rider sending money home to his mother in Nyamira will pay more. This Ruto regime has found a way to tax the poor, even when they are not buying anything, and they are taxing the movement of money itself. And the bill proposes a 25% excise duty on mobile phones at network activation. 25%. 25% on a phone that is no longer a luxury. A phone is an office. A phone is also a bank. It's actually a classroom. The only infrastructure that millions of Kenyans actually possess. Kenya's diaspora sent home a record $5 billion last year through mobile platforms. Economic analysts are clear. They tell us these taxes will reduce remittance volumes. Rural families depend on those transfers, will bear the greatest burden. Beyond the visible taxes, the Finance Bill represents something more troubling: the quiet construction of a tax surveillance state, expanded KRA access to third-party data, bank records, mobile money transactions, business accounts without adequate taxpayer safeguards, shorter filing deadlines that will crush small businesses, system-generated tax assessments that can arrive without explanation or notice, automated penalties for failures caused by KRA's own technology. We are building a government that can see everything you earn and everything you spend, with the power to act on that information faster than you can appeal. A Kenyan earning 30,000 shillings a month still pays income tax. This regime taxes poverty, and now it wants to tax the digital tools through which the poor literally survive. And number 6, strategic assets. Who is selling Kenya? When this government faces a fiscal crisis, and it faces one right now, it looks at what Kenya owns and asks, what can we sell? We are talking about Kenya Post Authority, through which over 90% of Kenya's imports and exports move. We are talking about Safaricom, the company that built M-Pesa, whose government stake generates dividends that belong to every Kenyan taxpayer. In fact, because I'm in court over this matter, I cannot speak much. The Treasury is getting a dividend of 16 billion half term. Therefore, in a year, 16 billion shillings. And that is a 15% share that the Treasury is trying to dispose of. It is taxing an asset, it is selling. That is not fiscal management. That is a fire sale. These are not just ordinary companies. They are crown jewels. They are what this country built across generations. And the United Alternative Government will not allow any government to sell them quietly, without consent, without debate, without a 2/3 majority in both houses of parliament. We know that a parliament that is also state captured, like the current government, and we congratulate members of parliament representing the alternative government, because you scream. I remember when you are transacting this matter of Safaricom or Sitat, the deputy minority leader actually went for the mace as if to make a point, and he was expelled for it. Please do something. The country is watching. The alternative government in waiting has produced a fully costed people's budget for 2026-2027. Every figure in what follows is sourced from the same National Treasury documents. The budget summary of April 30, 2026, the budget policy statement, the Finance Bill 2026, those taken together. Our numbers are the government's numbers, rearranged according to a different set of priorities. The framework. On gross expenditure, at 4.318.5 trillion shillings, 499.3 billion less than the Ruto regime. Our total revenue at 3.725 trillion will be less than 95 billion shillings more than the Ruto regime through compliance, not new taxes. Our fiscal deficit will be 593.5 billion, which represents 2.8% of GDP, against Ruto's regimes of 5.3%. Our domestic borrowing will be 500 billion against Mr. Ruto's regime's 995.7 billion. We shall have the pressure on Treasury bill rates and private sector credit in 1 year. We shall restore the development expenditure ratio from the Ruto regime's unconstitutional 29%. That is a statutory breach of the PFM Act, that's Public Finance Management Act, minimum floor to 33.5%. The children who will inherit this country deserve a government that invests in their future, not merely that services the debts of the past. On education, we shall fully fund free primary education at the statutory 1,420 shillings per pupil per year, closing the 18 billion gap documented in the budget policy statement. We shall fully fund free day secondary education at the statutory 22,244 shillings per student per year, closing the 28.4 billion capitation shortfall under this budget of Mr. Ruto. We will fund JSS capitation in full, and we shall revamp the Kenya school equipment. Total education allocation will be 737.3 billion shillings against the current regime's 668.3 billion. We will cut 22.4 billion shillings from the ministry's 112 billion administrative overhead and redirect every shilling to our children. Free, free means free, all the way from class 1 to form 4 for every Kenyan child. On health, we shall close the 11 billion SHA gap documented at page 29 of the budget policy statement. We'll fund free care at every public hospital up to county level. That is no card at the gate, no system down, and certainly no patient turned away. We shall reinstate Linda Mama as well as reinstate Edu Afya. And make no mistake, we shall cancel the 104 billion SHA technology contract and redirect every shilling to frontline care, stocking dispensaries, paying nurses, buying medicines. We'll also increase KEMSA from KEMSA's allocation from 18.8 billion shillings to 30 billion, so that no Kenyan patient is told to go buy their own drugs, as that is the practice. Total health allocation, 242.3 billion shillings against Ruto's 170.7 billion. On jobs, we commit to a national youth employment compact. That is 80 billion over 2 years, 80 billion shillings. A single fund with one accounting officer and one measurable outcome, that is verified jobs created. 200,000 placements in public works infrastructure maintenance, a skills to export pipeline linking technical colleges with verified export sector employers. Zero-rated startup capital for youth-led MSCs employing more than 5 people. Not grants, but contracts, deliverables, and results. 67% of our young people are not idle because they lack ambition. They are idle because the system was never designed for them. We will redesign it. On cost of living, we shall repeal the import declaration fee, the railway development levy, and the road maintenance levy on fuel imports, bringing diesel to approximately 170 shillings per litre. We will also abolish the housing levy. Of course, that abolishment will take into account the legislative aspect. All right? We are not just abolishing without asking you guys to do the needful. And because a lot of you are state captured, the next administration will certainly ensure there's no housing levy. Our executive order number 1, giving millions of Kenyan workers an immediate increase in take-home pay. That's what my brother Rigiji refers to rescuing the payslip. We shall zero-rate solar panels, batteries, and inverters. We'll introduce a 30 shilling per litre targeted fuel subsidy for certified agricultural use. And we will remove from the Finance Bill 2026 the 16% VAT on M-Pesa platform fees and the 25% excise duty on mobile phones. On fiscal discipline, starting at the top, we will cut State House operations from 12.6 billion shillings to 6.3 billion shillings. We must cut the NIS allocation from 58.6 billion to 35 billion shillings. Kenya is not at war, yet the NIS has doubled since 2020 without proportionate gain. We'll also abolish the 13 billion shillings police motor vehicle leasing program and procure direct, saving 4 billion shillings over the contract life. We will then redirect the 35 billion shillings in savings from NIS and State House reductions into a national irrigation investment fund covering Garissa, Marsabit, Wajir, Turkana, Kitui, Makueni, Laikipia, and Kajiado. Because food security is national security. We will also implement a single treasury account to eliminate ghost workers, duplicate payments, and pending bills that are an Auditor General's verified leakage of 250 billion, all right, a year. And we must congratulate the Auditor General, because there are two ladies I personally respect, the Controller of Budget and the Auditor General. Two ladies who have stood strong in the interests of the Kenyan people. Every contract requires confirmed exchequer backing before work begins. Any accounting officer with an adverse Auditor General report must step aside immediately. Now you may ask, where does the money come from? I'll tell you. 200 billion shillings from the structured sale of stored affordable housing projects at market value. 250 billion from single treasury account efficiency savings. 90 billion shillings from a simplified flat 7.5% rental income tax on large landlords currently evading through complexity. 104 billion shillings from cancelling the wasteful SHA technology contract. 125 billion shillings from halting non-priority vanity capital projects. 30 billion from right-sizing NIS and State House. That is not a promise. That is a United Alternative Government's balance sheet. A message to the Kenyan people. To the primary school head teacher writing a letter home in July because capitation has not arrived, we see you. Under administration, that letter will never need to be written. To the mother turned away at the hospital gate because the SHA system was down, we see you too. And under our administration, that gate will never be closed to you. To the Form 1 student or CTR 10 student who arrived at their school, arrived at their free day secondary school and found no desk, we hear you. And our government, the desk will be there before you are there. To the border rider who finished the day in debt because fuel costs more than his earnings, we also hear you. And our government, fuel will cost less, not more. To the Mama Mboga in Gikomba who learned the government now wants to tax the M-Pesa transfer she uses to pay her supplier, we'll feel your pain too. Under our administration, that transfer will be cheaper, not more expensive. And to every Kenyan who owns a piece of KPA and Safaricom through their taxes and is watching that stake quietly diminish, we are with you. Those assets are your inheritance and we shall protect them. Now, a direct word to members of parliament as I conclude. You were not elected to be a rubber stamp. A mother woke up before dawn, remember that, walked to a polling station, queued for hours, sometimes under rainy conditions because August sometimes is very, very, very cold. Queued for hours and marked your name because she believed you would go to Nairobi and fight for her. When you vote to approve 28.4 billion shillings free day secondary capitation shortfall, you vote against the children of the poor. When you vote to approve an 11 billion shillings hole in SHA, you guarantee that the next Kenyan will be turned away at a hospital gate. When you vote for 16% VAT on M-Pesa platform fees, you tax the only bank most Kenyans have ever had. And when you approve a fiscal deficit of 1.11 trillion shillings, a statutory breach of the PFM Act, you are not building this country. You, honorable members, are mortgaging it. And I know none of you sitting before us today. Make no mistake, history will record your vote, and in 425 days, just like the current regime, the people will have made a record of the choice you made and make it plain at the ballot paper box on August the 10th next year. Conclusion, as we comboa our country, we have had victims of police brutality in our midst before we all got together here. We all remember Rex Masai was the first one to fall when we were shot at the leg. And June the 25th is around the corner. I have confirmed from Honorable Makali Mulu, and I share that with Bernard Kavuli and his colleagues, including their advocates, that some 2 billion shillings is already in the budget, but under office of the president. Would have preferred if that money went directly to the Kenya Human Rights Commission. And then, even then, it's not even sufficient. We Kenyans expect it's not enough. Like, I really congratulate my brother Rigiji for saying he is not in need of 50 million shillings for a breach caused on his own rights under the law, under the Constitution. So it is very easy for this administration to think by paying 2 million shillings to a family whose son was felled by a police bullet, you have done justice. Kenyans deserve and they demand justice. The perpetrators of those heinous crimes, even as we speak, this police continues to perpetuate those abrogations of our Constitution. Did we not hear yesterday in Laikipia, and people like Laikipia, we hear you, my colleagues will speak to you about that we're importing Ebola, and then we kill. Even when our people peacefully demonstrate, you kill them. Can you imagine a regime that arrests a Chief Justice Emeritus? We will be organizing massive demonstrations to protect the Nairobi National Park. So it is not just Chief Justice Maraga, whom they tried to harass yesterday. So we stand in solidarity. We want this money paid, the 2 billion, paid on or before the 25th of June. There should be no prevarication about this. After all, William Ruto himself announced he has a list of those supposed to be beneficiaries. And so we want Kenyans to remain alert and fully cognizant of the fact we are at a crossroads. And I thank you. Tomorrow, what you have read, this is an abridged version. The whole text will appear in the local print media tomorrow. So Kenyans can see united alternative government in action. And of course, there's a lot we can do. There's a lot because we are just dealing with their own figures. We will deal with our own in the next 1.5 years to come. I thank you. I can start with my brother Rigiji to add on to 1 or 2 comments. And I know some are stressed for time. Or shall we start with you, Fred?
Thank you. I have very little to say. I just want to say that a few months ago, I said SHA will collapse in 6 months. For the last 4 days,
it has collapsed.
The systems are down. That is a sign of collapse. When Rigiji tells you that your wife is expectant, please buy some diapers. I want to ask our members of parliament in the National Assembly, those who believe that they serve the people who elected them, to be in the forefront in rejecting on the floor the 2026 finance bill. And the other side, the flower girls of William Ruto, the flower girls who are the majority, will want to vote by acclamation. Please be present to force a division so that Kenyans can know who voted with them and who voted against them, so that they can keep a record, so that next year, in another 14 months, they can pay them back in kind. So that is my plea, that please be present on that day so that you can force a division, so that it is known, it's on record, who has voted with the people of Kenya and who has voted against the people of Kenya. I want to support that the new administration next year will do away with the housing levy. And I want to put Kenyans on notice. You are being asked to start paying for these houses. Please don't. You just lose your money next year. Don't throw good money after bad. Keep away from those avoidable houses. Because next year, sure as December 25 is Christmas, William Ruto and his people will go home. There will be a new administration that will do away with the housing levy. So it is foolish and unwise to put your money when you know that chances are 9 to 1 you lose your money. Again, we have seen a lot of land belonging to private people being grabbed by William Ruto and PS Nixon Korir, especially here in Kiambu, where there are large tracts of land belonging to private people, the land being subdivided and sold hastily to investors. I want to put investors on notice. Please, don't buy this land. Next year, the land will be given back to the owner, and you will have to make a trip to Sugoi to look for your money. It is unwise to lose money when you can see you are going to lose it. All those large tracts of land, William Ruto moves at night with a torch, identifying land, and PS Nixon Korir, his tribesman, is the architect of grabbing land belonging to private Kenyans. And this land is being sold cheaply. And gullible Kenyans are buying. This will not be allowed to happen, and the land will be restored to the owners, and you just lose your money. So please, unless you have money to waste, we're asking Kenyans to be careful. And again, all those people who are being sold public assets, please don't buy. You will lose your money next year. Because it will not happen. All these public assets will be restored to the Kenyan people. And since we are putting you on notice, you will not be able to plead ignorance and to say that you bought because you did not know. Don't buy public assets between now and the next general election. You just lose your money. I thank you.
Well done.
Ladies and gentlemen, 4 points to be made in addition to what my colleagues have said. When we, in public discourse and public meetings, say that we are not just talking, the things we say can actually happen, we've demonstrated this year that they can actually happen. So my first point is, to the people of Kenya, we are talking about hope. Don't lose hope, because we will restore our country to where it ought to be. We will provide real free education. The fear I have, I've not looked at the most current data, is that our dropout rate in schools could very easily have gone back to the pre-Kibaki days because of the number of children who cannot access education. The figures we have quoted here and the savings we are making in the education sector are intended to remove all the barriers to access to education. Because for a country of our size that has got the aspirations that we have, we cannot afford to have barriers to access to education, whether they're in levies, in fees, and all that kind of thing. So all those policy proposals that worked effectively during the Jubilee administration will be restored. They will work. Edwafia will work, as we have demonstrated to you, so that parents don't have to be called and hassled when their children are sick in school. We will remove some of these irrelevant and unnecessary levies and restore capitation to schools so that school heads are able to manage schools without stress and without undue pressure. What I would like to say, I said over the weekend, and I reiterate it again, that on this one issue of education, it's necessary, and we are asking the president and his government. You know, time lost, a year is too long in the education sector. We can have an all-parties conversation, and we have demonstrated what can be done to save the crisis in the education sector right now. They could start with this year's budget, this year's finance bill, and save the situation in the education sector. I have noted that the only change the president has been able to do is to appoint Mr. John Ololtua as the new PS as the Minister of Education. John is a good guy. He was my regional director of education when I was minister, but that is not enough. They need to have a different mindset in the way in which they are looking at the education sector so that we can save our children and our parents, and most importantly, our teachers from pain. Point number 2, discipline is destiny. There is no way we are going to manage ourselves as a country outside of effective discipline. The level of wastage in government is unbearable. You have noticed clearly from the proposals we have made that we can live within our means, we can reduce some of the allocations and some of the luxuries we're engaged in. For a government our size, for a country with our aspirations, faced with the challenges that we face, some of the things we do are actually very unrealistic and almost totally irresponsible. Point number 3, we are a democracy, and democracy is government by deliberation. Our colleague, the Minister for Finance now, or the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury, has been criticizing us and saying we are making proposals to the Finance Bill 2026 recklessly. And my answer to him is this: you put it forward so that we deliberate it, we give you our views. And that's why we are asking members of parliament that if some of these amendments are not done, then the bill should be rejected in total. There are details that we have not gone into here. For example, if you increase tax on income from rent from 7.5% to 10%, all that is going to be passed on to tenants. The same ones who are paying SHA, the same ones who are paying housing levy, the same ones who are paying all these taxes. How will life be afforded? So we are not basically saying things because we are bored. We are saying things because we can see and we live here. And we are saying them in patriotism. And our colleagues, our fellow citizens who are in government, need to also, with the same attitude, the same positive view, take our proposals very seriously and take them in their stride and see what can be done. And I don't think, although Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka and Rigathi Gachagua did not say this, I don't think that the United Alternative Government is opposed to a conversation. Our members of parliament who are in parliament, I'm sure will be very happy to have a conversation on how these measures can be changed and these proposals can be changed in Finance Bill 2026 so that we can have a palatable situation. He asked how I was in cabinet for 10 years and we passed finance bills. We debated all the time. We negotiated all the time. In fact, in most cases, we gave away a lot. Sometimes it's a give and take, and government should be prepared to go to parliament and sometimes listen to the members of parliament, accept to lose here and lose there, reorganize here and reorganize there and readjust so that we can go forward in a manner that is essentially bearable for all of us. Finally, I don't think we are going anywhere if we adopt this attitude, like I have seen in some of our government officials, of behaving like we don't have a right or a role to point out these things. Who are you governing? You are governing us. Na sisi sio kondoo. We are human beings. We have views. And then when we give these views, please take them. We are your brothers also. We are not expatriate Kenyans. We are Kenyans in our own right. And we are telling you these things because we believe in them. And in that same vein, I would like to encourage our leaders, first from those who are in the National Assembly and in the Senate, in the United Alternative Government, to push hard with these proposals. Because all these things we have proposed here, if you don't take them to the floor of the House and read Finance Bill 2026 against these proposals, then what we are doing here is just a political exercise. So I would like to request our brothers and sisters who are in the two houses to carry these proposals with them and read Finance Bill 2026 side by side with the proposals we are making. And in the event that our fellow citizens who are in government will not listen and make these amendments, my recommendation strongly, like that of all right-thinking and positive-thinking Kenyans, is the Finance Bill then should be rejected in total. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me begin by acknowledging that we are always making history. Tomorrow, the 11th of June 2026, at 3 p.m., the CS for the National Treasury and National Planning, John Bundy, will be reading the budget estimates for the coming financial year. It will be the first time in the history of independent Kenya that a budget, national budget, is being presented in the absence of a sitting president. He is a president who has urged every Kenyan to tighten their belts, that we are in hard times. But he's the same person, same president, who is galvanizing all over the world in some executive jets at the expense of taxpayers, who is willing to tax up to their blood. And therefore, because he knows what is proposing in the finance bill is so painful, he has chosen that it better be read in his absence. And therefore, for my good friends who are in Parliament, we ask you, as has been urged, to carefully look at every clause in the Finance Bill 2026 and make sure that you stay on the right side of history. Propose whatever amendments you may. Insist on a vote on each. And as has been said already, we'll keep a record. Never mind that the choir may be too loud, but just have a record. As you know, the house is a house of record. Yeah. You will be recorded as having been the right side of history. Even if you are defeated, you will have earned your right to say what you needed to say. As has been stated, what His Excellency Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka has read here is an abridged version of the proposals by the United Alternative Government. But I would want to just alert you to one particular provision, that proposal that he has made. The proposal on single treasury account. Because it is there that we will realize a lot of the envisaged savings. No contracts to be entered into without a clear budgetary provision. That will eliminate the possibility of having pending bills, because you will not enter into a contract when there is no budget. And if you do so, as has been contained in his speech, a very revolutionary proposal is that if you are the accounting officer, you will be held accountable because the Auditor General will point out that. And our proposal is, as soon as the report is tabled on the floor of the respective houses, you step aside until such time as the house will have cleared you. We are talking about an accountable government. And therefore, as I indicated to some of you who are here, I will be suggesting an amendment to Section 68 of the PFM Act to also include county governors to be included as accounting officers because they have been evading accountability on the basis that they are not the accounting officers. And therefore, any adverse findings by the Auditor General, the report is tabled before the Senate, please just pack your things and wait. Go home and wait until such time as you will have been cleared by the Senate if you are a county governor. We mean business as the United Alternative Government. These and many other proposals, which you'll see when you read the full documents, are meant to restore dignity and accountability and return the country to the rule of law and constitutionalism. Indeed, as I finish, His Excellency spent a lot of time on the area of education. I would just ask you to just go and read. He made the reference to Article 53 of the Constitution, but Article 53 has been actualized on the 14th of January 2013 by the enactment of the Basic Education Act. And in that act, if you just look at Section 39, paragraph E, it is the duty of the Cabinet Secretary for Education to provide all manner of infrastructure. And therefore, what has been contained in this budget speech is anchored in law and is realistic, it is achievable. Just want to urge you, my good friends in the two houses, please reach out to more of your colleagues. Unless these amendments are accepted, reject the Finance Bill 2026. I thank you.
Well, we thank you. We've consulted here. This document will be made available tomorrow, so we will not receive questions. In fact, the Honorable Magara will be one of the discussants tomorrow in the media space, or others who are well schooled in this area. So I hope you can understand, because it's an important thing we have made before you. Very important statement. Please avoid any attempt to do securitization of the housing levy. We know they are trying to do that, so that even when we come and take over, our hands will be tied. Fight with your teeth and your nails, if you have to, for this country. We thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Excellent.